Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another uLaw webinar. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about the analytics capabilities of uLawPractice. Today's webinar has not been approved for any CPD credits. We're in the process of getting it accredited. We just have to change the subjects and the information a little bit more. But today's topic and the webinar is going to be, again, yet another hands-on experience for those who are interested in the product and for those who currently do use it. It's a great session for me to walk you through the analytical capabilities of the product, and having done all the heavy lifting of what you do on a day-to-day basis using the product. This should be an eye-opener to the capabilities that uLaw provides to you in terms of all the data that it can provide you to answer all of the questions that you may have, sometimes questions that you don't even know how to ask about your business, about the legal aspect of it, about the business aspect of it as well. Okay, so once again, request you to use our chat window as our support staff are online to answer any questions that you may have. And please do mute your phone lines, and we'll look forward to, and this session will be recorded and be available to you in a few days for you to review as well. Okay. Now, like any other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has an agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, the agenda is about being able to show you how we bring in that 360 view of your business. Okay. Being able to analyze information about the unknown, about accounting data. It really comes down to how uLaw can crunch those numbers and give you meaningful information out of the data that you already have. Okay, so for example, let's say you accept a retainer, or let's say you started a matter for a specific area of practice. Crunching the number from an accounting perspective is about how much of revenue do you, as a legal professional, receive within a certain area of practice. Okay, so that's something that you may want to do, right? So if you're a legal professional, let's say you do POA work, small claims, as well as landlord and tenant, you obviously want to understand where the revenue is coming from, which silo of practice is performing better, so that maybe you can use that information to up your game on marketing. Okay, so we're going to talk about how uLaw gives you that data today, readily available, with no extra step required from your part, but just to enter the data about what happens in real life. Okay, getting a better insight about your legal aspects of your business, including trust and general ledgers, outside of the reporting capability. So we'll talk a little bit about those reports, but this is truly about the insights and the dashboards and the analytics capabilities. Okay, and obviously we've learned from our friends in the industry that larger law firms use information, right? And this is very true for any side of business. People use information or process the data that they have to come up with the information so that they can make meaningful, powerful decisions about how to grow their business. And in many cases, spend thousands of dollars, if not more, to have full-time business analysts and staff available who can crunch the data for them. But as a product that was built initially for sole practitioners and still is a big part of our motto to empower sole practitioners, we've built that capability right into the product, and we'll love to showcase that to you today. Okay. Just some examples. I'm going to jump right into the product itself, but just to give you a quick snippet of what we're talking about. So at a matter level, so if you look at the matter analytics, the analytics capabilities gives you information, I would say, about important past success and any failures, so that then you can learn from that to move forward with applying that knowledge in the forthcoming months. A great example would be for legal professionals that use uLaw today. They constantly keep checking the amount of expense that they have on a monthly basis. They really want to curb their expenses. So they drive analytics on a weekly basis, if not a monthly basis, to understand where is their expense going. Is it rent? Is it software? Is it hardware? right? And we give them that insight today, and then they are able to compare it. So I want to compare my February 2018 expense report in a very nice, easy analytical dashboard and compare it with February of 2017 and really assess if I've come a long way. Or maybe I want to compare it on a month-to-month basis. How have I done in Feb compared to Jan? So let's take some examples of that, and I'll show you on a matter-to-matter basis too. So within a matter, it could be how much of expenses do I have on a matter? What are the recoverable expenses that I have? Is that increased? Has it decreased? Right? Those can be very important pieces of information to even decide if you want to pay your disbursements out of trust or general, right? Because if you're not getting paid on time and a lot of that of recoverable expenses is being delayed, then maybe you want to use that information and change your whole methodology of how you operate by asking for a retainer, including that disbursement too. So that's a very good example of how you'd use the data and the analytics that we provide you to make important, powerful decisions about your business. For those who don't know, what questions should I be asking to begin with, or are there other questions that would give me more insight about my business? Here's a quick example, right? For example, how much money did I receive in trust? Very simple. Everybody, I'm sure, can ask that question. But do we ask, how many withdrawals do I make from the trust account? Meaning, do I regularly invoice this client, which means I must have done a few more than one trust transfers? Or do I just do one invoice for that matter? Is that my pattern? That talks about the area of practice, that talks about your way of, your discipline of how you deal with things, right? What's the trust balance? That's a very important question. Your clients may want to constantly ask you that. You're able to generate all that information, click a button. What was the last trust transaction? That may be a question that you want to ask yourself, if especially you've been dealing with that matter for a pretty long time. So again, these are just some examples of the types of questions for which we have answers already built in. And we only encourage, and we would like for you to start using these capabilities that are already there at no extra charge, mind you, so that you can be more empowered and make very meaningful decisions about your business. Okay? Very important. Is there money in trust that is yet to be paid? How much of your service has been invoiced, right? How much of that actually has been paid in full? And what was your invoice by client, paid by client, what's this trust look like? And you can even start to look at these analytics to say, for example, if you've built a business rule that says, you know, as soon as your retainer drops to $200, you're going to ask for a top-up, then using these analytics are going to empower you to do that as well. And what does it do? As I said, it allows you to make very smart decisions. It also gives you the capability to be more productive and generate more revenue. That's the bottom line. Okay, we can be compliant through our documentation, but through the analytics capability, we can make you more productive, make you take smarter decisions, and work towards generating more revenue or saving costs. Okay. And I'm going to really stop down to this. I'm going to talk about some of these uLaw answers. We're going to jump into it at each and every silo. So we have analytics at each and every aspect of the legal business within the product. So at a contact level, at a matter level, within the accounting aspect of it, right? So let's dive into the product and spend the next 35, 40 minutes to start looking at the capabilities that you already have today within the product. And for those who don't know who we are, who's joined us today, we welcome you. And we are a proud Canadian legal accounting, practice management, and a business accounting software company. And for all our clients who've joined us on this webinar, welcome. And we thank you for your ongoing support. And yes, we do offer a no obligation 30-day sign-up. And for existing customers who've joined us today, again, don't want to sound like a hearts all hairy, but we do have a very good referral program And if you think a friend or a colleague would benefit from the product, we would sincerely appreciate your referral. Thank you. Okay, so as part of all my demonstrations that I've been using, I use this particular legal professional, Roger Moore, and I'm logged in into one such Playground account. Now, each of our clients does have access to their own Playground account, as well as their own account. And I'm logged in into the fictitious Roger Moore. And I'm going to start to, okay, so for those who can't hear me, I hope you can hear me better now. I am using a wired connection from my phone, a landline, so I hope this is better. Alrighty. From an analytics perspective, as you probably know, we have an entire menu option called Analytics. Okay, so you can see part of one of my demonstrations was here are some preset analytics that we've already built into the system. And I'm going to show you how we build it. But before that, let me give you a little bit of a taste for the kind of insights that we have at every stage. Okay, before I jump into the analytics, let me walk you through what you already have. So let me take an example of a very recent contact for a demonstration purpose that I just finished. So let's look at Mr. Bean Murphy. Okay. Now this is a client that I just worked on for a particular demo. And at a contact level, if you look at, you see this question mark. Okay, so that's really your cue or your input into getting more information about that specific contact, Bean Murphy. Okay, and we have this insight. So today's topic was about analytics and insights. So when you click that question mark, you get the insight. And when you do that, we start to generate all of the information that you want to know right at the contact level itself. Okay, so let's say this is your front desk, this is your assistant, or if you're a solo practitioner, this is you who's dealing with clients and you want to get a better sense for it. So this is a running clock of all the information you need to know. Okay, nothing really stands up yet for this particular client. You can always rewind and look at it. So what are the questions that we give you preset answers for? The client owes you $0 right now. Okay, there's no pending client payments. So far you've not raised any invoices that are outstanding. There's no balances. Okay. Now let me look at a better contact maybe. Let me look at Ellen DeGeneres. So right at each stage, you've got the question mark that gives you all that important information. Okay, you can download this just as a fee book, or you can generate that insight. We also have it in a Q&A format, so about 17 to 20 questions. So these are some of the questions that you probably didn't want to ask yourself, or didn't know to ask to begin with. For example, let me just move along. So there's a total of one matter for which the client owes you. Okay? The client owes you $39. So just jumping into the third screen with that contact. So let's say Ellen gives you a call. You jump into the contacts of uLaw. You click on the insight, and right away you know that there's $39 outstanding that she owes you. And that's probably a great way to use that conversation to ask for the $39 owing. Yeah? Total invoiced. So right away you know before Ellen can even ask you, and especially for those who've just joined the firm new, or if this hasn't hit your memory, right, you want to know what's the total invoice so far. That's the information right there. Okay? So out of that, you know, obviously we know $865 was paid, and that's why the $35 that's still pending. $39, sorry. Now, a next important set of questions, let me just even pause this, right? So out of that, how much was received in total funds, trust funds, sorry, of $300 was the total funds received in trust. Okay, and it was obviously paid out, so we moved that money There's no more trust balance. There's no trust transfer pending. So sometimes this is a very, very important insight about a particular matter, which is how much of pending trust transfer do I still have for that particular matter, right? I'm sure you've asked yourself that question. So if you're in the contact, you can ask that for that specific contact right away by going into that contact and using the question mark and hitting on the insight. So we apologize that it's as hidden as it is right now. We're obviously making changes, and we're making huge changes to our user interface, which we hope to showcase to you in the coming weeks. But as it stands today, this is how you navigate to get more insight about that contact. Now, if this is a contact that you've obviously just now created, obviously all that information is going to be null. The information and the data builds the information for a specific contact or matter, right? So I've shown you how within a contact screen you can start to generate analytics. You obviously have reports. So the client fee book report that we just generated is basically a report. It's a PDF, old school, you see numbers and that's all there is. So it's the same piece of information. So the balance owed is $39, right? $565 invoiced, you received $300 in trust. All that's great, but the analytics has the power for you to be able to consume it in a format that's a lot more faster, a lot more crisper, and to the point. And for those who want to ask themselves a little bit more questions, you can go into the details. Okay, so for example, we have some interesting questions. Which matter had the highest invoice total? Okay, so you've had a total of 2 matters. The one matter had a 565, and that's the total number of the invoice. Okay, and the second matter had an invoice of $339. We also give you the file number, so you know right away. Okay, so that's right at the contact level. Again, reiterating any piece of information that you need to capture right there. Now let's jump into the matter. So like really a next quick step, right? And again, I'm not focusing too much on today's conversation or webinar on the reporting capabilities. So uLaw, as you probably know, has silos of various compliant set of reports, which again is a matter of crunching the data and providing it to you in a very compliant, consumable manner. But today's topic is going to go one step further and talk to you about the analytical engine and the insight engine that we've built in, which is not just giving you a report, but giving you meaningful answers to questions. So now that you've created that matter, jumping into the Ellen DeGeneres matter, you see there's another question mark right within the matter itself, okay? And this talks to you about the analytics of the matter itself. And this is one way that you can start to either accept payments, right, that $39 right here. You can accept that $39 right now, or if there's any pending trust transfers, you can look at it right away as well. But from an analytics perspective, you always want to use the question mark, a way of quickly asking yourself any question regarding the contact, regarding the matter, or accounts, etc. Okay, so that's really your entry point to these analytics and insights. So you've got another uLaw insight right here, very similar to the insight that you had within the contact. And before I even jump into the insight, let's just look at how you can decipher all that information here. So very simple, you've got a total of 1 invoice, right? And again, I'll be honest, there's 2 matters. This is very specific to this fence issue. So you've got 2 matters for Ellen DeGeneres, and if you go into the speeding ticket and look at the question mark there, the information will be totally different. Okay? So in the first case, for this particular matter, which is a speeding ticket, there was no trust involved. There was no deposit in trust. There's 1 invoice, which you can reprint. no money in trust, and hence nothing was withdrawn. There was a general invoice of $565, and that was paid in full. Yeah, we say paid in full. It was invoiced on March 1st, earlier this week, and you received the payment the same day. And here's a quick and easy general ledger just for your eyes only. This is not a Law Society compliant report. That's available in your accounts. This is just for you to have a quick view of it. And if I were to click on the uLaw Insight, the insight is about this particular matter for this client, okay, at a matter level. So it tells you right away it's invoiced, which means done with, no pending invoices. If there are any pending invoices, it would say pending invoice. Total number of invoices so far, 1. The total invoice that was raised was $565. The total that we got paid was $565. Okay, and hence there's 0 balance. Very interesting. How many days was it since that invoice was paid? Okay, or actually raised? So that's really that question. When did you raise that last invoice? It was yesterday. Okay, Thursday, 1st of March. How long has it been since you got paid? Okay, so you got paid yesterday, so perfect, right? Any funds received at all for this matter? No. Any trust funds paid out? No. And hence the trust balance is 0. Okay? No pending trust transfers. The client doesn't owe you anything. No settlement deposits, withdrawals, no retainers. And if you really go into your details, at the contact level, there was only 17 questions, whereas at the matter level, we have close to 26 different questions that we answered just for that one matter. Now, obviously, it may seem as a bit of an overkill, right, for a simple matter as POA, but if you can kind of build it as a discipline to start listening to the data that your firm is telling you, you are obviously able to get that insight from that data about how you can be better in the game. Yeah. So let's look at the other matter, which had some trust transactions involved, which is fence issue. So going back to that question mark, always that's the entry point, and heading the uLaw Insight. Now this is giving you a slightly different picture, but with the same contact. Has been invoiced. That's the total number of invoice, yeah? And the invoice was for $339. $300 has been paid, okay? And that's the invoice balance. Again, when was the last day? It was yesterday. Total funds received. So this gives you now a slightly different and a better picture for it, right? So what happened is you accepted a retainer of $300. You had a fee for $339, and that's $39 that the client owes you over and above. And you obviously did the trust transfer, which is fantastic, and hence your trust fund must be 0, or trust balance, sorry. Right? Makes sense? So you've taken a retainer of $300, sent a bill for $339, you did the trust transfer, and you're just waiting for the $39. So you know what the full situation and the picture of this matter just by looking at this for a couple of minutes. And if you want to ask yourself more questions, you obviously can click on the details. Okay? We ask questions such as, on average, what are the total number of dockets in this matter? So if you know that you have a certain type of matter that's outstanding for payment, you can even figure out how much effort has gone in. If this particular matter had like 30, 40 dockets on it, that's something to reflect on. Right? Was there any flat rate dockets? So it kind of gets a little more granular about the nature of the matter. Was this flat rate? Was this billable time? Right? So that's some of the things that you can reflect upon to gain more insight about, again, a certain type of discipline that you've built in your practice, and you're continuing to go down that path. You sometimes need to take a pause, reflect on the data set. Okay. So just a quick refresh about the analytical capabilities that are just built right into the product at each and every stage of you working with the product. So for a contact, Ellen, at the contact level itself, you've got the insight, which gives you insight about the specific contact, any specific information that would be meaningful right away. So this looks at both your matters within Ellen and then tells you that that's the amount. So it's kind of a summary of all the matters. But then if you want to go do a deeper dive and get into specifics of a particular matter, you go into that matter and use the same question mark to give you the insight that you need. Okay? Now, in the case of accounts, a good majority of the analytics are a part of the reports itself. But then we have the ability for you to start generating analytics as you need it, right within here. And what we've done is instead of giving you specifically within the accounts section, we've moved the entire set of business analytics or accounting, which combines both legal and business information under the analytics engine as a separate menu option. So for contacts and matters, you have it within the question mark. For kind of the accounting aspect and the business side of it, we've kind of given it under the analytics engine itself. Okay. So at a very high level, there's about 12 different dashboard analytics that we have. Now you can determine how many little squares of information you need. So if you only need a couple or maybe 4, you can change that at any time. You can say I only need, within your dashboard, you can say I only need 4 analytical items. We have clients that have 6, and that's the max, and that gives them the ability to quickly compare different data sets. Okay? So let's jump right back into analytics. So this gives you 4 little squares. And you've got lucky number 13 set of dashboards. So I think it's time for us to add a couple more. So let's look at it one at a time. So if you really want to know your revenue, okay, so I want to know, it's just started, the month has just started, and I want to know what my revenue is for. So already in the month of March, Roger Moore has made $2,500, right? That's the amount of income made. And what was the highest revenue? So you can even pause it. I mean, we run it for about 8 seconds, but you can always pause it. That's the total amount of revenue from a particular category, which is small claims. That's the highest revenue so far. Okay? So this is equal to your question mark, if you will, but we've got it under analytics. What was the second highest revenue? So we give you those particular information. Third. Again, this bottom line is your income statement, right? But we give it to you as just-in-time information. It's not a report that you need to generate, because this is the kind of data that you want to consume over a weekend. You want to sip a coffee and you want to open up uLaw. You don't want to be generating them as reports. You want to be able to consume them as visual information so that you can quickly compare it too, right? So we spoke about being able to compare things. So let me say I want to compare my revenue insight to this quarter. So how have I performed this month compared to what I've earned over this quarter, right? So this quarter I've earned so far 91 grand. Obviously this is a fake account. It's very obvious. Compared to the 2,500 that I've earned in a couple of days. The highest revenue over this quarter, right? The same pieces of information, but all fundamental difference, again, we give you is the time period and the question that you're asking us. The question is, give me my monthly revenue, and this give me my quarterly revenue. I can even compare it. Let's say I want to compare this to my last year's revenue. So I say from first to 31st January, what was my revenue like? It was about 200 grand. Okay? So then you start to think, am I progressing well? Within the first 3 months, if I've made 95 in a quarter, the third month is only just getting started, then I'm definitely on my way to make a much better year in 2018 if I continue where I'm going, right? If you're not doing as well as you would probably like, then obviously it's time to reflect furthermore and then reflect other pieces of information. Ask different sets of questions. So let's do that. Maybe it's a question of expense. Where is my expense going? So for the month of March, what is my expense? It's about $2,200, very minimal. Whereas let me compare it to this quarter, right? I can actually hide this as well if this is too small. So overall, this quarter, you've spent about $28,000. And there are further details to each of those sub-items, at least about 5 to 10 different questions that we answer. Okay? And let's compare it to last year. What was your expense like last year? You're not going to generate a report. You could, but if you find it an easier way to consume this as a dashboard, then here's the question. Answer the question. What was the total expense last year? It was 75 grand. Okay. Highest expense, and it was for a client's account. So almost 47,000 out of the 75, almost 75% was towards the client account, which hopefully is recoverable expenses. Okay. The second was rent. So you paid 10 grand in rent. And the third was office supplies, and that was another 6 grand. So you can ask yourself the same question. What was the second highest? Okay, it was office supplies. Okay? What else do we have? Profit and loss. So you don't want to do your math, you don't want to generate reports, all that crazy stuff. You just want to know. For the month of March, am I profitable? So far, perfect. We tell you right away. Same thing. For this quarter, am I profitable? And if so, what is the total profit and loss? So we take your income minus your expense, and that's your total profit or loss, right? Same thing, I want to compare it to my last year. I was in a profitable mode. I had about $125,000 of profit. Okay? And where is all this data coming from? That's the question, right? It's coming into uLaw as you, the user, starts to provide it by just using the product the right way. And what does the right way mean? Adding the contact, creating the matters, docketing the effort, raising the appropriate invoices, doing the trust transfers, right? Those are the things that you're required to do so that you can manage your books properly. But a very fantastic, beautiful sidekick in you doing that is that you can now start to drive these types of analytics. Okay? Again, it's not top of your mind on a day-to-day basis, and that's why it's not meant to be on a day-to-day basis. There are customers who look at analytics in uLaw on a daily basis, but a good majority of our clients look at it, if not weekly, at least in once every 2 weeks. You have to make it a habit to start using it more often than today, because that's the only way you're going to be able to be better at what you do. The most used dashboard item, I would say, is the fee book. And after that, it would be the category. Okay? So let's look at that. So let's really quickly look at your fee book chart by category. For the month of March, I've got 3 different silos from which I've got revenue. And I'll do the same thing for this quarter. Fee book chart by category. And I'll do the same thing for last year. fee book chart by category. And this is where we spoke about how data utilizes the success and the failures of your past and allows you to be more prepared for your future, right? Make those quick changes that you have to do to be competitive in this marketplace. Obviously, this is a playground account, so it's got obviously dummy data, but it becomes very real for you as the end user once you plug in your actual data. So for those who have not seen this or have not used this extensively, take a shot at looking at it tonight, within your uLaw, and hopefully it gives you a better perspective of how to use it. So you see last year we've got, and you can be as innovative as you like to divvy up these different accounts. So we've got clients that only do criminal or only do immigration, and what they do is they break down their different areas of practice by geography. So they say, I've got clients from immigration. I've done a matter for immigration, but it's from Kingston. I've done an immigration matter from Toronto, from Peel region. So you can break it down by region, and you can be as innovative as you like. uLaw would then start to give you information pertaining to that. The reason why you see 4 quadrants is because in my settings, I said I want 4 analytical items. I do apologize. I'm just using up 3. I could have done this, let's say, all right, what are we doing? Fee book by category. And let me do it 2 years out. Okay? So I'll say I'm comparing my January 2016. Okay, so this is my 2016 revenue, my 2017 revenue, and this is the reality of today, which is the 2018 by quarter and this 2018 by month. Okay? So if you were to do this through reports, you're going to go crazy. If you were to crunch 2 or 3 years of data by running reports, which you could still do in uLaw, right? I mean, you can very much do that, but that's just a lot of data. And this particular playground account has millions of records, so we were able to churn that data in a matter of seconds. So here's a quick insight. Obviously, you've always had a widespread, let's assume Roger Moore in this case has always had a big widespread variety of the pie chart, right? So where he's getting his revenue from. So the biggest revenue generator in 2016, after accident benefits, was immigration, was employment law. You've got tribunals at about 7%, expenses at about 8%. Whereas if you compare it to the what is this? This is 2017. You got almost 23%. So your expenses went from 8.7% to almost 23%. That's the expenses on the client account. Okay. Your accident benefits went up. Now, the small claims is about 18% compared to small claims, which was only 8%. It's gone up to 18.7%. So that's a direct comparison, and you've done exceedingly well there. And then you can start to reflect why that happened, right? And where did these categories come from? They come from the area of practice that you tag as you create a matter. Okay? And this is obviously, as you know, a configurable list. So you can configure this, plan it, and configure it based on your need. So Kington, obviously, is not a great spelling. So let's change it. I'll show you how you can do that. Accounts, because these are all revenue accounts. Then we go into my revenue account. I'll click on Immigration Kington, and I'm going to change that. We do have a new Spellcheck Engine for those who didn't realize. I think we do a better job in the description too. But yeah, we've added a new spell check that you can use to check your spelling. Okay. So going back to analytics, you see it's Kington at this time. But if I were to regenerate this, it's actually loading the analytics. Because I think that's a lot of data. It's changed it to Kingston. So runtime, I was able to show you how we were able to just change that label, right? So this is today, 59% coming from small claims, 33% coming from POA, about 7% of expenses. This is my quarter, 27 from personal injury, 22% from contract work, about 11% from small claims. This is my previous year, and this is my 2016. You know, how cool is that, right? Likewise, you could start to look by clients. Who are your top paying clients? So for some of the silos of practice where you have very limited clients, or if it's a repeat client, like, I don't know, real estate, wills, could be criminal, corporate, right? Those are great examples of where very limited clients, that kind of suffices to generate enough revenue, so you can start to look at that. So far in this month, 47% came from Mr. Bean Murphy, about 31% came from Ms. Ellen, out of the total revenue, right, of 2,500 or so. Whereas this quarter, I've got about 28% coming from Mr. Frank, and this is miscellaneous, 24%, which means I've not tagged it, or I've tagged it as miscellaneous expense. So let's say you want to know at the end of the year, who was your top paying client? So maybe you want to send them a gift card, right? You're so busy, you're not looking at this kind of information on a daily basis. You're only reviewing it on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, unfortunately, sometimes. But, you know, here's a quick, smart decision you can make based on the information that you just received. If Mr. Bean Murphy is the highest paying customer, or was the highest paying customer, or let's look at this 2017 record. Was Benjamin Moore? About $28,000. So you probably want to give Benjamin a call and thank him for it. Right? So that's, I think you get the picture. We'll look at some more dashboard items. And you can also start to look at some of these key analytics, especially around the contact and the matter level analytics right from your phone. So today with the uLaw app, you have the same question mark that you've looked at in both contacts as well as matters, right within the app. Whether it's iOS or Android, you can very well, you know, open up your app and start to click the question mark right there. Okay. So Simone Garfield was the highest paying customer in 2016, for an example. Another interesting piece of information that I see customers use today, and we talk about this all the time, is the expense. Okay. When things are not going right, when you're trying to cut down costs, you really want to reflect on where your expenses are going. So these are all the expenses for this month. I'll look at my expenses by category for this quarter, comparing it to my expenses last year and the year before. Okay? Okay. So everything has been expenses on client account. So far this month, none of my other expenses have kicked in as of March 2nd. This quarter, a good part of my was expenses on client accounts, office supplies, as I said, you can look at the tabular or the bar graph real quick. Rent expense on client accounts is $14,000. You can also click on these. Okay. Compared to last year, or expense on client account. If you look at office supplies, it was about 13%, I think. Rent was about 13%. All right, so here's a great example. So maybe in 2016, your rent was 33% of your total expense, and you were able to bring it down consciously to about 13%, right? And it's about 6% this quarter. So that's a great indicator of how you could use data to also reflect if you made right decisions. Sometimes it's used to make decisions. Sometimes it's used to validate the decisions that you made. May not be for business sense at that time. Could be an emotional decision. Could be marketing decisions that you moved your office, right? So the bottom line is that the data that you provided the product exists. What we've done is given you these dashboarding capabilities so that you can ask the pertinent question and derive the information from the underlying data that we already have. Okay, so that's the bottom line. So without beating it any more further, that's the beauty of the analytics, the beauty of the insight that we looked at. Another important dashboard that I would talk about is the work in progress. And maybe this is not a great thing to compare because this is kind of in the moment. So I want to know what's the work in progress. So I have one matter, Robert vs. Hulk, which is in progress, right? I want to know by pro bono. That's a very important dashboard. That's an interesting dashboard. No pro bono hours, about 13.8 hours. All of them are billed hours so far, which is great. But if I were to compare it to my quarter, I want to know, have I given away any pro bono hours? And we wait for that answer. Okay. It's either an internet or I've given away too much of pro bono. There you go. About 17% of pro bono, another 82% of billed hours. Okay, so obviously the month of March has started great because no pro bono so far. So here's another very important data set that you can start to look at. Maybe you've not looked at it from that perspective. Maybe you've just marked dockets and matters as pro bono, but you've really not synthesized that information and looked at it from a percentage of your total billable hours. How much is going towards pro bono and how much is actually getting billed, right? That's very important from various different angles. So just as a recap of today's webinar with another 5 minutes remaining with Q&A, our key message out of this webinar and what we wanted to showcase is that with the analytics and insight capability that's built into uLaw, it gives you the opportunity to ask the right questions, derive those insights, and be more smarter in your decision making about your business, more productive, and also allow you to be on top of your game, by visiting your business numbers on a more regular basis, then fearing it and generating reports which sometimes don't give you the actual information or in a certain, I would say, visual way that you probably need it. Okay? So we looked at the contact level, the uLaw insight, different set of questions, different set of answers, different set of insights. At the matter level, we looked at the question mark. Same thing, very contextual. So within the context of this particular matter, defense issue, you've got all of the insight specific to that matter. And then when you look at the business aspect to it, you got it all under the analytics. Okay? Now, obviously, we have some pretty I would say, cool reports. One of the new reports that we've added is the revenue by employee under your calendar. If you're a multi-person law firm, you basically can start generating reports which tells you which employee is bringing what aspect of your revenue. So if you've got 100 grand this month, who's bringing the 100 grand, what's the percentage division across employees. So that's what this report is. You can have a timesheet. And again, but these are reports, right? These are paper reports, PDF, that you can look at. But in addition to the compliance reports, in addition to all the business reports that uLaw generates, again, we'll reiterate for you to start looking at the insights and especially the analytics on a regular basis, again, to make those smarter decisions. Okay, so with that, I will wrap up this webinar, and I will open up the floor for any questions. Okay, first question is, where do we get these expense charts as well? So I think the question is like similar to your fee book charts, and the fee book chart per category, and the category is your area of practice in a matter. Very similar to that. The expense categories come from the accounts. And if you look at your existing accounts and your expense, you've got different categories right here. You've got consultancy, rent, taxes, client expenses, office expenses. So these are the different categories and subcategories that is being referred here. Okay, so when you look at rent, expenses on client account, office supplies, right, interest, line of credit, that's actually coming from here. So when you actually enter an expense account. So for example, let me enter in my expense an office expense, and I'm going to say it was printing and stationery. I'm going to say printer, Xerox printer. I'm going to give this a big number here, $2,500. Okay, we auto-populate the taxes. I paid this to Best Buy. And let's assume I used my business credit card. Okay, so as of today, I'm just entering this new expense, which I never had before. I'm going to submit it. If you look at it, previously, if you remember, we didn't have that expense. Now if I expense chart by category for this month, you should see printing and stationery taking up 92% of this month's expense. Okay, and if I were to generate, not the pro bono. So regarding the HST, right, so that's about HST paid and received. So whether you register for HST or not, I'm sure you're paying HST. So for example, for Best Buy, you would still pay HST, right? But if you collect HST, that's going to help you balance the HST paid and received. But again, if you're not set up for HST, then within the matters, you would not accept that HST as part of your fees. But as an expense, you would still pay for it. For example, this is one of the things I showed earlier. So if you're not accepting HST, all you need to do is actually go into that particular matter and make that default tax rate as 0. Okay? That way, you're not accepting HST. So if you charge someone $100, it's just $100. There's no HST. Whereas this printing stationery was you purchasing at Best Buy, and you have to pay the province of Ontario the HST. So if I were to compare my expense chart by category for this quarter, you will see that go up because of that printing and stationery. There you go. Okay? So yeah, the accounts are coming from the accounts in your account section. Are these numbers coming from your expense report? That is absolutely correct. So the question is, are these numbers coming from the HST? So the quick answer to the HST is yes. The answer is yes. So another question that's being asked is this similar to the expense report, especially the profit and loss? I think is the question. If I remember your question right, so you're talking about the profit and loss insight for last year, or maybe I'll do it for this month. It is the same as generating the profit and loss report under accounts. That is correct. But the visualization of the data in the format that it's given is slightly, and the way it's consumed as a dashboard is different. So for example, I could still go into my accounts. I can go and look at all these reports. I can still generate my profit and loss. Just like how you did it in the analytics, you can still say, give it to me for this quarter. And it's going to give you a PDF. And a PDF, I mean, you can still decide to throw in the analytics capabilities by same chart that you can draw, but this gives you further breakdown, right? So you can still look at the dashboard, and then if you want to further detail, you can generate that report. So 60,498. The same as the 60,498 that you see here. Okay? So you're absolutely correct. It is the same report, but the way we visualize the data is different. It's more straightforward this way. Okay. I really hope that answered the question. Okay, so if, the question, I know this is slightly out of the context of today's topic, but the question is if there is an NSF, how do you enter it? An NSF is obviously a bank charge, so you would add it as a bank charge. There's expense, office expense, and we have interest and bank charges as a category. So you can create one just called NSF if you like. It depends. I mean, so there's a couple of ways of dealing with NSF. One is taking it as an office expense, or in the case of certain cases where you want to pass it on to your client, you can put it as an expense to the client as well. Okay? Okay. So you can just say bank charges and charge it to your client. Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, oh, there's one last question. Will this video be available on your YouTube channel? Yes, I can see you're one of our subscribed clients. We thank you for that. Yes, our video of today's recording will be available in our YouTube channel, and we will send you a link. And again, please do provide us. We have sent you an email with a link to a survey, and I've said this many times. Do help us, help you, help us, help you by giving us your feedback on how we can be better coming up with newer topics. This particular topic, again, and to the extent that I went today, was specifically suggested by one of our clients as part of our survey. So yes, this video will be available to you as of early next week. Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, thank you very much for everyone who joined me today and for joining the uLaw webinar. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar next week. And have yourself a great weekend. Take care.